Vintage Rally 2024 here at Norton Fitzwarren, looking absolutely gorgeous as ever. The weather seems to have held, the heat wave still seems to be just about clinging on. So we've got 2 days worth of absolutely fantastic events here in the around Giles here, back with you. I took a sabbatical last year, did a bit of travelling. But I'm back, and coming up at 10:30 in the...
And so we sketched the shape of a Land Rover in the sand while we were there on holiday. And so the shape you see coming in now is a shape we sketched on the sand. Here we have a very clean and tidy, again an 86. The 86 inch refers to the real base of a Land Rover. Here comes a modern Defender. Entirely different type of construction to early ones, but we'll have a chat with a gentleman in a moment and find out more about it. Followed by a Range Rover. Range Rover was intended as an all-purpose tool. The first ones were 2 doors. They were powered by a V8 engine. They had coil spring suspension, so effectively they got much more travel on the suspension than the early Land Rovers, which used leaf springs. It was a luxury type vehicle, so you could come from a farm, go straight out to opera in the evening, and they've been used for all sorts of uses. We now have a Series 3 Land Rover coming in. The Series 3 was the last of the leaf spring Land Rovers. You can tell it's a Series 3 because the headlights are actually mounted on the rings, and they have a plastic grille in the front. This is followed by a Series 2. The Series 2 still has a headlights in the centre and a metal grille. They came in various versions, so the original Land Rover had a soft top and everything was extra on the Land Rover. Here we have a Series 3 long wheelbase, so this will be a 109. Hardtop, it's had windows put in, so it would have been a full hardtop originally, and also a full door. Here we have another Series 3. No, sorry. Series 2A. It started life as a Series 2A and then had different rings put on it, so it looks like a Series 3. Yeah. Land Rovers are a bit like a kit of parts. You choose different bits from different Land Rovers and end up with something really peculiar. Here we've got a nice Series 2. Very clean and tidy. And a little passenger here. Good morning. What's your name?
Oscar.
Oscar's really enjoying his ride around the ring in the Land Rover. Now we've got a Series 1 coming in. This is an 80-inch, very early. They call the model paintwork the patina, and they do rate it very highly. So when you see a Land Rover with all the paintwork falling off, you're meant to say, it's got lovely patina. Now we have a very clean and tidy Series 3 coming in. Now this is a station wagon, an original station wagon. Originally made for overseas use, because you can see the tropical roof on the top. That's to keep the heat off the inside of a Land Rover. If I could just stop this gentleman a moment and ask what size engine. Right, he says it's 2 1/4. I'll talk a little bit about engines in a moment. Now we have another Series 3. This is just a standard hardtop rather than a tropical hardtop. It has had modified leaf springs put on. The leaf springs are meant to be softer than the original version, but it doesn't seem to make a great deal of difference. A Series 3 with a front winch. The front winch is very popular, and the original Land Rovers actually had a hole in the back of the chassis, which you can see on this one that's just gone past, and that was for an external PTO. So you could have a PTO on the back, and that could power a winch or power a saw or whatever you wanted to drive. Here we have a nice tidy Series 2. I know it was restored by a present owner, and it's really clean and tidy. Another Series 2 109-inch. They made 2 versions of long wheelbase. They made a 107 and a 109. I'm not sure what the crossover date was, but this was a 109 station wagon with tropical roof. Very original, successful, and whereas a demand for it in Europe, they started building them for the UK and Europe. They did put a bigger engine in. Engines were always a problem with Land Rovers, they were slightly underpowered. Here we have a Series 3 hardtop. Again, remember, if it's got a plastic grille and it's that type of body, it's a Series 3. And if you look underneath, you can see the leaf springs, so it means it's not a strange hybrid version. Another 109, this time the tropical roof. Very original. Now here we have an interesting one. It looks like a Series 2 and may originally have been a Series 2, but you'll notice it's got coil spring suspension, so it's actually known as a hybrid. The coil spring suspensions were the same as on the Land Rover 19, Land Rover 110, and they give you a much better ride and they're much better cross country. Now people are parking up. I'll start with my Land Rover. This is an 80-inch. It's the shortest wheelbase. This one was made in 1951. We now move to a slightly later Series 1.
1955 86-inch. It's not the original engine. It's got a 2 1/4 engine in it at the Series 2, because a lot of the early Land Rovers were not powerful enough.
Right, the original engine was known as an IOE engine. and that was inlet over exhaust. If you ever see one, it's a bit of a strange construction. Normally an engine has one single rocker cover. The original engine had two, one on the top and one on the side. And you're probably about 50 miles an hour, 55 He's done a very good job on this one. We call it a shiny Land Rover. It has had other names. When they brought out the station wagon, they wanted those taxis, and when they looked like a normal hardback, they had nice seats in their back, and they were much better. The last one was still gassy, and still after something of this manner, Series 3, hydraulic front mounted bridge. This was another option on Land Rovers, that was to have hydraulic driven bridges.
Growing up, and there wasn't a lot of choice on television, so it was war documentaries on yesteryear for my Saturday morning entertainment as opposed to something like cartoons. That's what happens when you didn't have Sky. It wasn't just Rishi, some of us didn't have Sky as well, and we're all the better for it. Meanwhile, here comes number 26, and that is a 4GPW and trailer pack. Number 55, a 1987 Land Rover Defender owned by Martin Tier, fully refurbished by the MOD as part of the British Army LEP, Life Extension Programme. displayed with the Penman trailer. And approaching us here is number 31. That is a BSA M... No, it isn't. It's got 31 on it, but it says it's a motorbike. Now, I don't know a lot of... There we go, 32. That would help. I was going to say 32 and 33. I don't know a lot about military vehicles, but I know that's not a motorbike. That is, in fact, a Bedford MW, most common of various 15 CWT body truck used by the British forces in World War II. And there might be a gun involved somewhere because they held up the number 32 as well, which is a 40mm anti-aircraft gun. And it's also owned by Mark Towers, so there's a gun there somewhere, so don't get on the wrong side of Mark. Meanwhile, here comes number 47. And 47 is an Austin Tilley. 29,000 of the more commonly named Austin Tilley were produced from 1940 until the end of the war as a pickup for military use. Fold-up seats in the rear give it dual purpose. Also approaching us now is number 27, yet another Willys Jeep. This one has been owned by John Down for 39 years. It was rebuilt from 2013 to 2015 and used by the British Army until 1957. It's displayed there with the American Bantam Jeep trailer. Thank you very much, looking at that lovely stuff. Meanwhile, here comes number 35. 35 is a 1977 Land Rover Series 3 from Mark Lacey. Oh, fantastic. Now, this is right up my street. It's in the markings of the Gibraltar Garrison Regiment, and it was used to promote Timothy Dalton's first appearance as James Bond in The Living Daylights, which appeared in the opening sequence. The fact that I know that is somewhat embarrassing, but I'm a geek. Meanwhile, here comes the Bedford RAF Bedford MW, brought to us by Peter Bold. It's been lovingly restored as a 299 squadron truck, serving at RAF Keevil. It's a 6-cylinder, 3.5-litre petrol engine, 2-wheel drive. Lovely stuff. Look at the way that's been done. Gorgeous. Meanwhile, with some great waving going on, we like the waving. It's number 48. It is, of course, the DAF. It's a DAF. It's an ex-Dutch Army weapons carrier, 5.9-litre diesel engine, decommissioned in 1996 on reaching 18,000 miles. Meanwhile, now this is a motorbike with a sidecar and a gun. It's number 60. I was from 1969. It's an AMG. KMZ. There we go. Fantastic. Meanwhile, there's a number there. It's a 4. What number is that, sir? 42. The meaning of life, the universe, and everything. It is, in fact, a matchless G3L from Andrew Hart. It's a 350cc motorcycle with teledronic front fork. 63,000 made during the war. Here is another motorbike, and there's another motorbike behind it. I wish I could tell you more, but they don't have the numbers on them, and I can't tell anything. But he has a bucket hat. I approve of the bucket hat. The bucket hat is a good look. Meanwhile, here is what I probably thought was the tank earlier, but it's not quite a tank. But it has got a big gun on it, so you don't want this coming up your ass on the motorway, do you, really? And, what number are you? I can't... Meanwhile, here's number 1. See, that is that number 1? Yeah, number 1. I can tell you what number 1 is. Number 1 is an Austin Champ. See, this is what happens when you have your number displayed. It's a WN1 GS version, Rolls-Royce V42 838cc petrol engine, synchromesh gearbox, and all-round torsion bar independent suspension. Oh, talking to the engineer in me. Meanwhile, number 57 is an Austin Series 3, brought to us by John Steddon. Thank you very much, John. It is a Series 3 variant with a diesel engine, one of only 50 built for evaluation, but never adopted for service. Thank you very much. Looking very well preserved there. Number 50 on the approach to us in the commentary box now is a Land Rover 1-ton from Alan Marshall. Thank you, Alan. It served with 42 Commando and carried a 81mm mortar and crew. It's a 1-ton low capacity with a 3.5-litre V8 engine. And here is Geraldine. We'll call it Geraldine. It's an AMC. KMC? Hang on, he's getting out. Oh, hang on, there's no number. I'm afraid there's no number. ASJ, I can't read the piece of paper there. Hang on, he's getting out. He's got a Harrier from 1943 called Geraldine. Well, thank you very much indeed. We don't talk about the fuel consumption apparently, but it's fuel with petrol. But, you know, when there's a war on, there are more important things to worry about than efficiency, apparently. Meanwhile, here comes a Kaiser Jeep from James Wadham. Thank you very much to James. It's a 2.5-ton cargo truck, 7.8 litre, 6-cylinder, multi-fuel engine. I love it when they're able to switch the fuels up. That's always so sick. Multi-fuel engine with the addition of a turbocharger, commonly referred to as the Whistler. Love a turbo. Turbos are great. Meanwhile, 36. The Land Rover Series 3 from Simon Elliott. Standard military lightweight 1.5-ton GS 4x4, now fitted with a 200 TDI diesel engine. So there's not a war on, so we can worry about efficiency and emissions. Meanwhile, this is number 44. Thank you for the number. Always helpful. The GMC CCKW 353 from Stephen Han. It served with the US Army in Europe. Rebuilt by the French Army in 1965. The restoration has been ongoing since 2017, and the markings are of the World War II French 2nd Armoured Division. There's a motorbike coming past, and there's the tank. I knew there was a tank somewhere. There is a tank. Gotta love a tank. It is a Scorpion light tank manufactured by Alvis CVRT. It's brought to us by Chris Webb. It was introduced into service with the British Army in 1973, was withdrawn in 1994. More than 3,000 were produced. If you ever want anything flattening, apparently Chris Webb's your guy with the tank. Meanwhile, here comes number 8 with Laurel Hardy on board. Squeeze on your horns, guys. There's a monkey there as well. There he goes. Number 8 is a Daimler Ferret MK27 from Ian. Okay. Head caught the section of the Ferrets. It's a Ferret, and it's originally it's a 2 rigid anti-tank missiles that would have had. Colour scheme as used in Cyprus, sold out of service in 1989. Here comes number 53. He's been waiting patiently. Thank you very much, sir. Number 53 is the Daimler Ferret. That's what we're guessing. The Ferret section. I see what we were talking about now. It's the Ferret section coming at us. This is number 53. It is a Daimler Ferret. And it is the Dalek turret. I like that. I'm a big Doctor Who fan. The Dalek turret is an improvement on earlier models. It is a revolving turret housing a 30 caliber Browning belt feed machine gun. Meanwhile, this is number 9. Now, number 9, wouldn't you have it? It's an Austin Champ. General utility cargo vehicle. Really? Number 9 is a general. I think that might have been I'm not sure. But this is number 18. Now, this is number 18. It is another Daimler Ferret, wouldn't you know it? With a Rolls-Royce B60 petrol engine, a Wilson pre-selector gearbox, and a permanent 4-wheel drive. It's been serviced from 1965 until it was struck off in 1994. Thank you. This is owned by DM Estates Limited. The basic model Ferret, modified by adding a raised cockpit to give the commander more protection. It has a Rolls-Royce straight 6-cylinder, 4,500cc capacity. Lovely stuff. 54 is a Bedford MW. Early versions with the open cab, aero screens and canvas side curtains, marked up with the Allied star as appropriate for D-Day landings. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Meanwhile, here is number 85. 85, you're not on my list! You're not on my list, I'm so sorry! It looks like an Audi, as Silent Stew has just said, and I'm sure it does. Also, got a nice noise coming out of that. Could some interesting backfire. Meanwhile, Rolling Thunder has arrived. It's big, it rolls, it sounds like thunder. Rolling Thunder, somewhat appropriate. 45 now, and 45 is a Land Rover Series 3 88-inch half-ton, brought to us by John Williams. It's a Series 3 with original 2286cc petrol engine. Lovely stuff, thank you very much indeed. If you've just joined us, the military vehicles, clearly a big draw. Hello to everybody at the main arena. If you fancy giving a round of applause to all the presenters and all their vehicles around the main arena, that'd be great, because these things do date back from long ago when grandparents were young, and some of them are in better nick than some grandparents. So, you know, it takes a lot of time and effort to make these things work the way they do. So massive congratulations to everyone presenting in the main arena. Thank you very much, everybody. Yes, of course. We said it looked like an Audi, obviously to myself and Stu, who were born towards the end of the 20th century.
one is you. That's competition, Larry. The young lad on the name doing a lot of ploughing with the young one. Nice to see the young ones how enjoying themselves, keep everything going.
Number 8 coming past us here in the commentary box is a Ford Luton. It's a Luton box body owned by Dale Selway. Thank you very much. Also on the approach to us now is, that looks to me, is that 77? That looks like it's 77. 33 in fact, I do apologise, I can't read. It's an Iveco Ford Euro Cargo Recovery owned by Jason Hearn. In use still, a Brymer recovery gear owned for 25 years. A Iveco Ford. Meanwhile, here comes another commercial vehicle past us here in the commentary box. The registration FAM 335. Owned Blake's Farm, TH George English Coombe. I'm afraid there's not a number that I can see on the display, but he might be pulling up outside the box to tell us what's going on. It's the only one in existence in the world. It's a 1946 Lander 12. Thank you very much indeed for that. Also, loving the flat cap. Can't go wrong with a flat cap, especially for a vintage vehicle. Meanwhile, here is number 5. It is a Ford Thames 400e dropside, brought to us by Chris Hall. 1703cc OHV petrol engine, 3-speed gearbox with column change, restoration from very poor condition. Took only 18 months, and look how great it looks now. Meanwhile, number 49 coming past us now is a 1970 comma camper van, brought to us by... That's not a camper van. Number 50 is a 1972 comma dropside tipper. That's the one. Also brought to us by Colin Foxall. Thank you very much, Colin. Meanwhile, here is also number 36. And number 36 is the 1973 AEC Matador, brought to us by Andrew Leonard. It's a new to British sound recording Sturbridge and used with a single axle trailer delivering record players. Oh, that's a bit of me, that is. I love a record player. Restored from scrap condition. Oh, look at it now. Lovely stuff. Meanwhile, this is for sale. Do you want this vehicle? It is for sale. See, that's 33. We already thought we had 33, but this is 33. And this is indeed the 1997 Iveco Ford Euro Cargo Recovery. In use still. The Brymer recovery gear on the back there has been owned for 25 years, and you could be the proud owner of that. It's available for sale now. Meanwhile, coming past this, is that number 20? I think that's number 20. I've got a nod of the head. That is number 20. It is the 2000 Kenworth T300 KW, brought to us by Andy Plummer. Kenworth show truck, originally shown in Florida. Yeehaw. Brought to the UK in 2010 and owned by the current owner since 2016. Meanwhile, number 18 here is the 1986 Sedan Atkinson, brought to us by Terry Moore, new to the Royal Air Force. Thank you very much, sir. Here, meanwhile, is number 35. What can I say about number 35? I can tell you it's a DAF T244, brought to us by Andrew McPhail. Originally a military medical lorry, it was brought by the current owner and converted in 2023. Look at that. Interesting choice of external decoration, I must say, but there we are. Now this is the only bus. It is the Bristol low-decker bus, built in 1962 and supplied to Southern Veterans for service on the Isle of Wight. I recently got back from the Isle of Wight Festival. It was brilliant. After ending its service life with Southern Vectis as a training bus, it was sold into preservation on the mainland and is now owned by, as we were talking about, Jonathan Jones Pratt, chairman of the WSRA. It is driven today by John Dawkins, who has driven the bus hundreds of miles in recent years when it was available for private hire for weddings and other services. Meanwhile, we've got number 24 here. It's a Volvo. Number 25, sorry. It's a Bedford 330. Mervyn Hunt has brought that. This lorry belonged to my brother to carry his horses around. I acquired it 3 years ago. Thank you for bringing it to the rally. Lovely to see. 26 now is the AEC Marshall, brought by Ian Maynard. Hang on, no, 26 brought to us by 26 is brought to us also by Mervyn Hunt. This lorry originally belonged to my brother for his livestock business. After being laid up for many years, I rescued it and renovated it. And look at that. That is, talk about a good job on the renovation. That's gorgeous. I'm loving the, I think you can see the drive shaft there. That is really nice. That is really nice. Meanwhile, Fox the Mover of South Wales, and give me a lift back after the end of this, back to South Wales. 1972 Bedford from Paul Fox. Are you going back to South Wales, Paul? I could do with a lift. Gotcha. 1975 Atkinson Border Tractor Unit now, and that's been brought to us by David Authors. This was used as a yard shunter with a lifting fifth wheel, saved from scrap yard by the Hacker family, and now used for rallies. Lovely, lovely stuff. Here, meanwhile, comes the Maidments Bedford, reg number SJD558F. Casters now here in the commentary box, looking absolutely gorgeous in what looks to me to be British Racing Green almost. It's a Bedford RL, I'm reliably informed. I love an open drive shaft and transmission. You can see the massive differential on the back there, it's great. Matador now. It's a 1942 AEC Matador, supplied to the War Office in 1942, sold on in 1946, where it stayed until 2009. It has recently undergone major cab repairs, and it is brought to us by Adam Troke. Thank you, Adam. Number 57 now is a 1963 BMC, brought to us by Paul Mancini. And coming up behind it is number 58, which is the 1956 Albion, also brought to us by Paul Mancini. I'm afraid to say we don't have any information on number 59 beyond the fact that it is indeed a Ford. Its registration is ARA 282L, and it is branded with wooden things on it: furniture restoration, cabinet making and general woodworking. The numbers on the side, they're based in Bristol. If you need any carpentry doing, clearly they're the people to go to. Although it also has the Ghostbusters logo on the back of it, so if you need the removal of any spirits, then there's the place to go. Meanwhile, number 12 is the 1970 BMC J4 pickup, built for BT originally, then sold on to a film production company for haulage. It's got a 1600 capacity, B-series engine. Meanwhile, here's a favourite of us here at the Steam Rally. Always lovely to see this one. The 1961 Dennis F28 fire engine, powered by a Rolls-Royce 4877cc B61 petrol engine. It's new to the Somerset Fire Brigade back in 1961, stationed at Poulton near Bristol until 1979. Now, eventually we will get that going with all the bells and whistles. It sounds great. It's always fantastic to see at the rally. Meanwhile, here is number 41. That is the 1963 Land Rover Fire E Series 11 2286cc, brought to us by Norman Gamlin. And the fire engineering by Carmichael, built for fire protection at the BOCM mill in Bristol, and was retired then to the Bristol Fire Museum and purchased in 2002. Our friendly neighbourhood sweeper has returned to the commentary box as well, and I believe, Silent Stu, we've got an announcement of a more pressing matter. Stefan Luke Davies, for that. Give them a wave as they come past. Bells, whistles and everything. Absolutely wonderful. It is the fire team. Always a delight to see them during the commercial vehicle display. Tell your friends. Get it on the socials. Do we have a hashtag? Someone create a hashtag. I don't know what the hashtag would be. As they depart, don't worry and don't leave yourselves, because we've got the steam engines coming in at 1:45. So in a grand total of 15 minutes. Siren like that coming out of the Land Rover, and immediately I think it's the introduction of Blockbuster by Sweet. one is. Richard, what can you tell us about this one?
This is actually a replica of a Liking 9 locomobile, which was in those days called a horse's carriage. This particular one, the company that supplied the kit for this made quite a few kits. And this particular kit for this one was sent to a man in the Netherlands. Put it together and ran it for a bit. And the gentleman who's driving it, Vince, wanted one of these. He bought that one and has great fun with it around the rally fields. Technically, you could put that on the road these days, but I don't think I'd like to drive
How does one drive that? What are they? That doesn't get the same way as the clutch and acceleration like that. There's a steering wheel there, is there?
There's no steering wheel, there's a bar that comes up. There, he's actually pointing at it. That is what is used for steering.
Right.
I believe there is a pedal there, which is the regulator, so that's the amount of steam that goes into the actual engine, and you can have a forward and a reverse. Demonstrating reverse, and now he's demonstrating forwards.
He's rather confident with the reverse, I must say.
He did very well reverse-wise, yes. It's 30 miles an hour, road legal apparently. Wow. You've not actually registered that one now, have you? I don't think it's registered, is it? Have you taken the whole road? I think you're mad. Have you?
You went and got fish and chips in it one night. It's road legal up to 30 miles an hour. And there's a great deal of bravery going on there.
Fish and chips tonight, they will see you and you'll go down and get a mass order, will you?
Can you imagine flicking down to Sainsbury's and getting the week's groceries and that? You get a lot of looks in the car park, and it's better than the Vauxhall courses when you're 17-year-olds at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, I rate that as a choice to pick your groceries up in. Well, coming alongside this now is something a little bigger, Richard.
It's a 12 ton. It's a 10 roller, it's called. This particular one was built in 1905 and was new to the Edison Rolling Company. They sold it in the 1920s to Buncombe's High Bridge, which is why it has the Buncombe sign on it there. It worked there with them until the mid-60s, 1963, there was a tax discount available for that one. And it's been in the ownership of the company for about 30 years. We did a lot of work on it, boiler-wise, etc., etc. I know quite a bit about that because I am actually that rover.
Oh, well, that would help.
Follow along is another R10 roller. Although mine is called R10, it's actually a 12-ton job. And it weighs in something over 13 tons when it's full of water and coal. The one that's just gone past is what they technically call a 10-ton roller. It actually weighs 11 tons or more. And that one was new to Hove Corporation and worked for them for some time.
King Sedgemoor.
King Sedgemoor, interesting. This is what they call a single crank barrel engine. You can tell it's a single crank because two pistons are actually at 45 degrees to each other. This engine was actually new to the current owner's great-grandfather right this year.
So that's been in the family ever since?
No.
No, okay.
It was used by her corporation, brothers. They were threshing contractors, and eventually when they were to a tractor, sold the engine, and Matt, as I say, the great grandson, has managed to purchase it back from about 2 years ago, I believe. Oh, wow. and he was very happy. I've known him about for years, and he's always said he would get in that engine.
Cornish Star, meanwhile, has just driven past us here. What can you tell us about Cornish Star?
It's Garrett. I believe that was it is set up a children's engine. We noticed the cutting road of so they can produce electricity and used in showrooms to drive the engines. Now for something completely different.
Charlotte.
It is indeed. I believe, without looking at numbers, that it's a power locomotive, probably a 4, possibly a 6-inch. The one behind is definitely a 4-inch. 4 inches refers to the actual size of it, 4 inches per foot, so that would be a perfect size. Here we have number 15.
Yeah, number 15 is called Cleopatra. Unlike Charlotte, who went past and said that the driver was called Charlotte, I don't think the driver's called Cleopatra. She's not called Cleopatra, but it's a 6-inch salvaged little Samson steam tractor, and that's brought to us by Rob and Sue Gibbons.
I believe someone's asking horsepower of these. The problem is, showing the different figure, it doesn't actually mean anything. For example, the third brothers, that's 7 horsepower. That sounds nothing, because you'll be talking 60 odd. The little ones have got no real idea of them.
I thought that was a real dog for a second. It's not, but this is a 6-inch McLaren 10 NHP road locomotive. Sozhull, brought to us by Brian Pearce. The engine is an impressive half-sized McLaren road locomotive with a full compound engine, 4-shaft, 3-speed transmission for heavy haulage. Engine weighs about 2.8 tonnes, has a working pressure of 200 psi, with a twin-steer trailer and Venton the dog currently at the engine. Meanwhile, coming past us there, what can you tell us about this one?
Oh, it's a man road tractor basically. If you look at it, it looks more. This is really designed for towing loads on the road, and not too sure when it was actually built, but I would imagine it's 1930s.
This was now is known as well as a 6-inch, 8-inch agricultural called Egmene Maize, brought by David Greenshields. The engine is a half-sized 1.8 NHP single-cylinder bowl traction engine. Built at 4 years, was completed in 2016, and the engine is in regular sponsor of this show. And we are very grateful for it. Thank you very much indeed.
David and the family do have another 6-inch barrel, 6-inch barrel crane engine. Size of crane engine you will see later.
This is a 4-inch Garrett traction engine coming past us now, brought to us by Judy Hawkins. The engine dubbed Old Maid. Meanwhile,
coming past us now is a 1925 Gaping in Water roller. This is a Type C. I can't really tell you what Type C means, but it's yet another single cylinder. This was new to Thorn and Bates in Buckinghamshire. Various owners. Bob Bell, who owns it, bought it in pieces, basically in 1997. Had a new boiler barrel, lots of other things. It took 5 years to rebuild it. Did you see the number?
yeah, I really like this next one. It's a number 16. It's a 4.5-inch Foden J-type steam lorry, brought to us by Andrew and John Berry. The engine was completed in 2010 and was built from a steam traction world kit. These engines are free steaming and are great for use on the road with impressive top speed for a miniature.
Hercules has just gone past. A very interesting engine. Number 1, I think, in your programme. That was built in that form, sent out to Italy, where they converted it into a roller. Built back about 10, 15 years ago by Mike White, and he has spent a lot of time, and money, rebuilding it in that roller.
Available for sale. Meanwhile, there's a couple here for you, Richard.
I'll just talk about the one that's gone past the train engine, which is quite fascinating, I think. It was new in 1910 to Screen Brothers, which is says on the site. Weighs 19 tons if you're interested. And it worked for the First World War. Two crews, one daytime crew, one nighttime crew. It was rebuilt in 1926 by Burroughs because it had been pretty well run out in the First World War. The same thing really happened in the Second World War. But I remember that particular engine way back in the 1980s, I suppose it was still in its working terms. So when they make sure that they got everything back on it as it was original. So where it says Screen Brothers Limited, Oldbury, Burton, that's exactly as it was in 1910 when it was built. The other thing with that engine is they've got lots and lots of photos and video of it in its working life, because it was used to carry enormous loads. The television crews, as it were, of today, they were basically to film the load. The engine on the front.
Just one critical behind this one. This one directly in front of us is converted from a mobility scooter and is all electric, so there are no emissions to worry about. Meanwhile, Jubilee, looking absolutely gorgeous coming past us here in the Coventry Brits.
Again, this is a conversion that was actually built as a road tractor, and apparently the order was cancelled after it was built. So the factory took it back, whereas this was, turned it into a quicker. So which it spent quite a long time as, before it was, back in the 1960s, it was converted back to the four-wheel design with all of the showman's paraphernalia.
There we are, look at that for 2 minds think alike, which
You're learning the technical terms.
I'll do my best.
So it's actually spent more time in its life as a showman's engine than it did working as a roller. We've missed a few.
We have missed a few.
We can perhaps talk about them at a later moment.
Fingers crossed. Meanwhile, Lady Betty.
For the 3 weeks leading up to it coming out, they were working until past midnight every night.
So were they machining that themselves at home?
I'm not sure about the flywheel, but a lot of the other work that they have done at home, yes. That's been driven by his wife, steering. You can see on the front of that engine, that's where the dynamo will be attached. And it will end up looking something like the one we saw earlier on. A little engine just gone past us. That's a green one.
Irby has just come past, followed by Endurance. Something that I don't do very well with, Endurance. Chances are off, obviously.
George is a McLaren again. I think that's a 4-inch. Quite what Esme was, I wouldn't like to actually guarantee at this stage.
Meanwhile, this approaching us now, what can you tell us, Richard?
It's a tractory.
Hey! I got that bit. Learn it.
It's a Marshall built in 1911, this one. Actually, to the rocks, they were and it went straight from them to the shores in Australia. They were Marshall dealers. He sold it for quite a long time in Australia. Ended up in a place called Gemstone, which apparently gemstones are very sweet.
How would an engine of that nature be shipped over to Australia? Would that be shipped in parts or would that be shipped assembled?
Yes,
It's
I'd be better than airship. That particular one was found in a dock in a canal. And it's a credit to Chris and Laura Lawson for the work they put into that engine. It's taken them about 7 years to rebuild. When I asked them how long it had taken them, Laura said, it's still being done.
These things tend to be like that. I've got a lecturer at university who's currently got a garage and some of his house filled with different bits and pieces of one of these that he's trying to build. Has been for a number of years, and the patience of his wife is unending. He's reliably informed me.
You don't tell me about doing. You actually built this one, didn't you? It's amazing, isn't it? 4.5 years.
Enough to go to primary school now. That's absolutely
So
gorgeous.
did you do all the lining on this yourself as well?
Cast off with bits of plastic and this, that and the other. It doesn't have the same sort of beauty that something like this does.
If you built something like that these days, health and safety wouldn't allow you to sell it.
Built the trailer as well.
No. Don't do. I know you're wishing to go
To explain the route demonstrating, then please lead through the entrance that you came in. So duck out the hunters and then make your way out. Thank you. Let's start. What's what happens when you get paid for something?
actually feeling a bit big headed if I say everything Ryan knows about driving Steve to me, but I have thought it quite a lot. And
It's a fine art. And the rotations go on the training.
And the only thing that Ryan hasn't done, which he's applied for, he hasn't taken his Group G driving test.
Group G driving. What's that on its own?
Road. So you were planning this category for driving licenses, Group G, sits alone on its own thing, road. If you pick one of these big traction engines, you can drive that on a car license.
You can drive that on a car license?
Yeah.
Street, okay.
Well, you can even drive, I can't see what's gone, but there was a Sony's engine, you can drive that on a car license. And believe you, there. And believe you me, when you're standing on there trying to drive one, you can't see very much because somebody stuck a great dynamo in it.
That's as much a car as I am Kim Kardashian. How can you drive that on a normal driving license? That's mad.
Yeah, mad it maybe, but you can do it. But to drive a steamroller, you need a Group G license on the road.
Rock and roll.
If you apply for it, but again you've got to be 21 to do probably 100 days in August, but we've heard no more from you.
We'll change them up then.
Yeah, probably so.
Right, okay. So it's a question of don't call us, we'll call you.
Yeah, very much so.
So we're dropping off the passengers and getting ready for the tug of war. If you're a young person, a small person, you don't quite count there, sorry, but if you want to take part in the tug of war, then head over to the main entrance to the arena, in between the refreshment stand and the bar stand, and we'll be able to get you onto the tug of war here.
Any children that want to help in the tug of war should meet over in the corner where the rides were taking part. And the classified
We've got somebody's very ready to go already.
I don't think you'll manage that on your own, young man. You can try.
Oh, we still never know. We're going to enjoy my active inspiration.
Even the bad person can try to manage it.
He's giving it a really good go though.
I'm just pointing out to
Giles, good. Glad you remembered it. Okay, gentleman here is wrapping up a roasting tin, roasting tin casserole dish in tin foil, which he will be putting in the smoke box in a moment to cook his evening meal.
Smoked ham. That would be a great shout. Look at that. That's old school cooking, that is.
You have to wrap them like that because a lot of soot gets in the smoke box, and unless there's a really good tight lid on it, it gets in the meat. And it gets gritty.
Gritty?
Yes.
See, I remember sooty, I remember sweep, I don't remember gritty.
Oh, well.
So someone's making dinner, and this little lad here is determined to get this steam engine moving, and hopefully we'll have more kids ready to go and see if we can have a tug of war going. If the kids are successful in moving this engine in isolation, we'll have a double loading setting. I'll get 2 back to back, and that goes, and then we're right on the floor. We've also got a demonstration like that. What was the demonstration? A demonstration. Winching. Not lynching, winching. Although then again, after this weekend, I can imagine having a fair few people that want to lynch me.
I got my hands full. Someone's got to hold the microphone.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm being still determination of the youngsters. We'll get some more in. They're coming over, being brought over now. We've seen a couple. And I know there's plenty more by that thing from getting ready to go over at the entrance exit. So not long to go until we're underway. Maybe not that hard, just got away. Hang on, the knot's gone. Hang on, the knot's gone. Alright, we're going to try again. Ready? If you don't want to do this, step back. Kids, are you ready? I'll do it again. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go! Oh! I mean, there we go. Go on, put your backs into it. Round of applause for the kids. Look at that. Well, we're moving. Empty what I'm saying to say about it. Lean back, put your feet into it and lean back. There we go, the ones on the front, follow the ones on the front. There we go, lean back, put your feet into it. There we go, nicely done. Seems fairly evenly matched. Fantastic stuff. Right. Right, you guys ready? I would say gladiators, are you ready? But we're not quite at gladiator level yet, so it's really say, you lot ready as well? That's how they're rolling and grunting. Right, 3, 2, 1, pull! Well, there is actually tension in that rope. There is a fair bit of tension going on in that rope. But I'm fairly certain that engine will be back. Yeah. That's giving up. That looks like giving up. What's this? I think that's them declaring victory. They're using the rear left wheel of this engine here. And that's now in tension. There's the cable, they're putting it away. This is now... So this engine's going to stay static.
Right. So the only thing attached to the back axle now is the winch wire.
So the rear wheel's been disconnected from the rear axle. The only thing that's is the wheel of the pulley for the winch.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so this cable is attached from the winch, from the
Yes.
primary winch, and eventually they're going to take it to full tension.
Yes.
And then that's going to stop, and
Yes.
then they're going to put the engine back into forward motion.
Yes.
And the torque of that is going to be so significant that it can be pulled that entire engine full back.
So, and they'll probably put the
If the brake's still on, that's a bit of pull. Yeah. And that's impressive. Okay, well, that's anyway. So taking out of the rear left wheel of this engine.
They do that on purpose, you know.
And then, so the rear axle is being driven by the engine, the wheel isn't. The pulley's been laid out, the brake's going to be put on Hercules, and then this engine is going to pull Hercules with the brakes on, using just the torque of this engine, and the pulley attachment on the rear axle. Now, that's impressive. I think this may call into question the reality of the tug of war, but regardless, this is really cool.
They really do need to be aware of from a safety point of view. You don't want to stand too close, because if, in the unlikely event of the wire breaking, it will snake off, it'll go everywhere. So we'll stand a little bit back.
But you can see that. Oh, hello. There we go. Here we go now. Bit of slide. The chocks are behind the rear wheels. As the cable is in tension, the torque out of that engine going through the pulley and pulling in back with the brakes on. I can't help but say that I'm
Yes.
It's a wonderful sound though, a steam engine going at full shaft, like maximum power. Low revs, but maximum, that's really nice. There was a bang. Not quite sure what that was. We'll get back to you. I've seen Final Destination. That's impressive, that is.
I think what had happened there, Giles, was that the wire was winding onto the drum, but it was all going in one end. So when the wire slipped off the wire it was on, I think that's what caused that
So it's just the cable being tidied up on the front, nothing to worry about.
yes.
Good. I mean, he's sunbathing, so he's clearly relaxed, there's nothing to worry about. applause, ladies and gentlemen. Very
And there is heading into a full chance to
So on something like Hercules, what would the top speed be?
But what it's doing now, I would think, you'll be lucky to get, I expect you'll get 20 miles an hour. I would think. Which is quite speed. They get to slowly build them to notation.
Going to be the range of 30.
Tractors, and then at 4:15 we'll have cars here in the main arena. Richard, thank you for joining us for the commentary of the Steam exhibition.
It's quite alright.
Will you come back again tomorrow?
What we can have
It's a fairly involved process for getting the drive back on the rear wheels. That's why we've got helpers coming around and doing Hercules is the parking. Once we get drive restored to the rear wheels of this engine here, we'll have the Arena 3 for the track.
And a big thank you from Aaron to all the engine owners, big and small. The Steam engines will return to the arena tomorrow at the same time. So we look forward to seeing you then from back. And I would say we're looking forward to seeing you if you're coming for the first time, but that means you're not here today, so there's no point in saying that. But thank you very much from Aaron to the owners of the big and small engines that took part in the Steam exhibition. We've got tractors coming through at 3:25. That final traction engine is departing us here, and they've restored drive to the rear wheels. Stunning bit of driving there from the young lady behind the wheel. The wheel, I'm fairly certain, is bigger than her, so it's a fantastic to her skill there. If you are a tractor owner and you are wanting to drive your tractor into the arena for the tractor exhibition, then now is the time for tractor drivers to be in the
by J.H. Gray in Minneapolis in the US of A. And it's quite interesting because I've done a bit of research on it. And of course, it talks about a gasoline engine, when in actual fact, to you and me, it's a petrol engine. It's an unusual tractor because it has one big pegged wheel at the rear, which is doing all the driving. And if you can see, the driver is sat out on the left-hand side. He looks quite vulnerable that he could fall off.
Yes, I see your point there. And if you get a good look at that rear wheel, that is one single rear wheel studded at the back there. So what would this have been used for over in the States?
Well, it would have been used for cultivating. It's got a belt pulley on the left-hand side behind the left front wheel, which would have been used for driving anything stationary. And it is quite unusual. But anyway, it's the first time it's been here as far as I'm aware.
Well, this is something that's far more than someone like me. My grandfather was a big fan of these. These are Ferguson. This is a TED 20 from 1952. Brought to us by Anthony Cross from Taunton. Thank you very much.
And this tractor was supplied by J. Glidden and Son, so it's an original tractor. Now, in the car trade, we talk about barn finds. I think these tractors were probably known as hedgerow finds, but it is a totally original tractor of that age.
Meanwhile, here is number 4 from 1967, brought to us by Jim Farrant from Milverton. It is a Ford 4000. Thank you very much for bringing this to us, Jim. Who's driving this for you then?
John Middleton's driving it today. John has had a lot of experience with Ford tractors over the years. He would know more about them than me. He's quite happy to take it on board. A couple of interesting facts. This is one of the first line of tractors that came out of the new factory. The new factory at Basildon, and you'll notice it's known as a Pre-Force, and it was codenamed the 6X before Ford released it. But in 1967, I actually passed my drop.
Western Zoyland. It was made in 1960. It is an Alice Chalmers D272.
1960. It's quite interesting because Mr. Chalmers was actually a Scotsman, and he emigrated to America and met Mr. Alice. And they got together because Mr. Alice used to make implements, and then they started to build the tractor, hence the Alice Chalmers.
Meanwhile, another excellent example of the 1952 Ferguson TED 20, this time from Andrew Cross in Willerton.
Another good example. There were hundreds of these made. Harry Ferguson was the first inventor of the 3-point linkage. And if you notice on the rear of this tractor, it has what they call 3-point linkage. And really, the modern tractors today, if you bought a brand new tractor today, it would have 3-point linkage very similar to that.
1964, it's come from Ufcombe and been brought to us by Martin King.
The very last of the Dagenham built tractors. Now, we talked about the Ford 4000 over there. Notice the colour change. It's not all blue. It's what they call a new performance Super Dexter. And it has a grey and blue appearance. And it was the last tractors to be built at Dagenham.
This now is a number 14 coming to us here in the box. Massey Ferguson, this time a 135 from 1971, come from Ufcombe and been brought to us by Ken King.
135's popular tractor. Notice it's one of the later ones with a straight axle. So if you look at the front axle, it's actually what they call a straight axle, and in a minute we'll find a swept axle one, which is an earlier one.
This now from 1972 has come from Milverton, been brought to us by Jim Farrant again. This is a one that you'll be familiar with, I'm sure.
Oh yes,
it is yours. This now is a Ford 5000.
This tractor was a yard scraping wreck when I bought it, and we've managed, or I basically restored it to what it looks like today. The Ford 5000 was one of the bigger tractors in its range, 75 horsepower, and beautifully driven by Dave Grabham. Dave actually was involved with me when I first had it. And yeah, it's Ford Force. So you've got a blue with red lettering down the side, supplied by Hawks of Taunton. So this tractor was actually on a farm, one farm from you, but only 3 miles from this field.
Are they going round? Because I feel like we've talked about this one already. The Alice Chalmers D270 from 1956.
Yeah, another Alice Chalmers. So Mr. Alice and Mr. Chalmers getting together, building tractors. And basically, if you notice, they're very high clearance. They were used a lot in row crop work. And in the States, where they were basically designed, they were used for hoeing corn or maize to you and me. But that would have been corn that would have been used for feeding to humans, not to animals, generally speaking.
This now is a Ferguson T20 TEF diesel from 1955, brought to us by Jeff. I don't know whether that's Bolger or Bolger, but he's from Chard. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah, another grey Fergie. This is a diesel one, so they're probably more popular. Again, Harry Ferguson built so many of these tractors. They went all over the world, and I'm not joking, they are in every country in the world. He's got a nice 10-gallon churn in the back and a bale of straw.
Wonderful stuff. This now, number 21, is an International B250 from 1958, brought to us from Burlescombe by Neil Buckingham.
Good old Internationals. Not so many of them around, not so many. Very square-fronted. Quite popular in their day, but it depended again where the dealers were. And the international dealers were not so common, but certainly in these days. But that is a beautiful example of a B250, complete with link box and family in the rear.
A name often familiar to those of us who are fans of a certain sports car brand as well. David Brown, 780 Selectomatic from 1969, brought to us by Sue Atwell from Taunton.
The good old David Brown tractor, and if you think about, and you mentioned sports cars, if you look at Aston Martin and a DB6 David Brown, and that badge is used, the David Brown badge is used in Aston Martin sports cars. So again, made in Huddersfield in England. David Brown produced them originally in, and I've got to get this right, hunting pink with primrose wheels, and then they went to white and coffee at a later date.
Excellent stuff. This now is a Fordstone Dexter from 1962, and that's been brought over from Wellington by Diane Hallett. Thank you very much, Diane. I'm not entirely sure whether that's Diane behind the wheel, mind you.
No, probably not. Somerset registered tractor. Notice this is a medium turn Dexter, so in other words it's got the lights in the grille. The early ones had the lights on the outside of the grille, and if you remember, we got somewhere here a new performance one which is in grey and blue, but this was in between, so you've got lights in the grille but still a rounded nose on it. But that's a lovely original example of a Fordstone Dexter.
That is really nice, proper job there. Meanwhile, we've got the Ferguson T20 Narrow from 1953, been brought over. It hasn't had to travel far. It's come from Norton Fitzwarren and been brought to us by Adam Branfield.
That's interesting that it's a Narrow. It would have been used probably in orchard work, not so likely in vineyard work here, but certainly definitely in Somerset in orchards. Narrows would be less common. It's a petrol TVO one I can see, and it's got, and it's probably a Ferguson fertiliser distributor on the back. It could be a Lister, and I'm not 100% sure because I do remember those, and it could be, I think it's a Ferguson fertiliser spreader on the rear.
Talking of Ferguson, we've got another example of a T20. It's a single E. This is from 1947. Another example brought to us by Adam Branfield from Norton Fitzwarren.
Yeah, yet another grey. Goodness knows if we had every one that was built, I think they'd stretch from here to Exeter, I reckon. But another petrol TVO one that looks like a compressor on the rear of it. Belt drive compressor. Notice it's mounted on the 3-point linkage, which was Harry Ferguson's design, the Ferguson system.
135. So do you reckon you can identify that based purely on your knowledge?
Yeah, that's a 135. It's a 135 straight axle, so it's one of the later 135s, square top wings. Notice the 3-point linkage, the Ferguson system. And if you notice behind the badge, there's a little tractor, picture of a tractor with a plough on, and that actually says Ferguson system.
Lovely stuff. This now is a roadless Ploughmaster brought to us from Langport by Mike Mitchell, and it dates from 1975.
Now this is an absolute peach of a tractor, and a roadless 118, which was 118 horsepower, 6-cylinder, based on a Ford skid unit, roadless of Hounslow, put on the front axle, and if I'm right in saying the cab was actually made by Lambourne for these. And it's a beautiful example, and that was a big tractor in its day. That was a big tractor for ploughing, heavy cultivation work, and it looks a stunner, to be honest with you.
A Fordson Dexter now from 1959, brought to us by Billy Dowan over from Dorset.
Now this is interesting because this is an earlier Dexter. Notice the lights are not in the bonnet, they're on the outside of the bonnet, so it's an earlier Dexter, again built at Dagenham, so just on the outskirts of London, which is now a car plant. But that's so that's a diesel Dexter, which again Ford's, Ford's actually took on the 3-point linkage and made their own, but it came from the Ferguson system.
Meanwhile, this is a Fordson Major, this time from 1952. It's been brought over by Douglas Tubb from Wellington. Thank you very much, Douglas.
A Fordson Major, I'll have to wait till it gets beside me and I'll be able to identify a bit more whether it's a Power Major or a Big D as they were known, which was the earlier diesel Major. But notice the lights again are on the outside of the front grille. The later Majors, the Super Major, etc., which I'm sure we'll see one, will have the lights in the grille. And this is a Fordson, just Fordson Major, I believe. So it is an early one. Yeah, it is an early Fordson Major. Again, Dagenham built, UK built Fordson Major.
Talking of Fordson Majors, how about another one? Let's have one from 1958 this time, brought to us by Ben Hucker from North Petherton. Well, I say that, but someone's jumped in ahead, and I can't see a number. So, Jim, I'm going to have to rely on your insight and knowledge here.
It's talking about a garden tractor. Now, I'm not sure. It could be a wheel horse. I'm not sure what it is, to be honest. It's a little single-cylinder tractor.
It is a wheel horse.
It is a wheel horse, is it? Oh, well done. So, yeah, we've worked it out. Well, I recognise it's for the person walking in front of it. But yes, I mean, these were made really for the horticultural market, but they're not, again, they're nice to be restored because you don't see many of them.
That is lovely. That is really nice to see. Great trailer as well. Meanwhile, here comes a Fordson Major as promised from 1958, Ben Huckers from North Petherton.
I think this one's a later one. Now this is probably a Power Major, and I can't quite see, but I would have said by the age of it that it's probably a Fordson Power Major. So this is a little bit later than the earlier one. And, oh no, it's not, it's a Big D. Now a Big D is a diesel Major because they did make TVO ones at the time. And it's, I can see it's a Big D, which they're known as that because if you look at where the markings are, it's got the Big D on the bonnet.
Approaching us now, I'm just trying to read that number, and I think that looks like 37, which would indicate that it's another Fordson Major.
It's a Fordson Major that's got the lights in the grille in green. It's got a 6-cylinder engine in it, I guess, and a bit unusual, really. We don't know. It's got an air compressor on it as well. So that is, I would say, a bit of a homemade tractor, dare I say it. And I don't want to offend the owner.
Don't offend tractor owners. I'm descended from one, and trust me, it wasn't worth offending him, I'll tell you that.
Oh, quite. He's had to be nice about my tractors, otherwise he'd have got a clip round the ear, wouldn't he?
Oh, yeah. Meanwhile, International 956XL from 1981, brought to us by Barry Hill from Highbridge.
Yeah, International 956XL 6-cylinder. Nice cab, quiet cab tractor, XL cab, which is, on the name it's a 95XL, that is an XL cab, and that is a nice original example.
A David Brown 850 from 1962, brought to us by Shane Hockey from West Huntsville. There's also Slick written on a sign there. Does that mean anything to you?
Yeah. No, it doesn't, but it's actually in. And I get it right for David Brown people, the colour is hunting pink. The wheels are primrose, and that is the proper terminology for David Brown 850, which is, they were made in Huddersfield, up in Yorkshire. They were a popular tractor and still are one to restore.
A John Deere now, a 2140 from 1985, brought to us by Jamie Day from Western Superman.
Well, there we are. This is getting newer now. We've got a John Deere 2140 SG2 cab. Quite interesting because I sold against these in their time, and I used to use the word getting through the windscreen. But it's quite clever because the actual where the door meets is in line with the exhaust pipe, so it doesn't block your view. But that is a more modern tractor, if you like. I think 2140 was about, I think, 80 something horsepower.
This now is a Nuffield 465 from 1968, again brought to us by Jamie Day from over in Western Supermare. 2 tractors for the price of one, we like it.
Yeah, Nuffield, this is the last of the Nuffields before they went blue into Leyland. So this one is it's a 465, so that will have a 10-speed gearbox in it, I'm sure. And that's a nice example of that tractor. Leyland engine, that's a nice example. Again, they changed to blue and they became Leylands on the later ones.
Here, meanwhile, is an International 523 from 1969. This time it's come from Graham Rendell over in Dorset.
Graham is a big international man. I know he's got a tractor, I can't remember the model, but it's got a 4-wheel drive roadless axle on it, so he's usually on that one, but this is a different one. Again, this is an unusual tractor. You don't see too many of these around. 523, but beautifully driven by Graham.
This looks to me to be a Ford Standard Fordson from 1947, and it's come over from Milverton with Stephen Charlotte.
Well, there we are. I'm really pleased for Stephen that it's actually going. I'm hoping he'll get round the ring today. Now, what you will notice is that the mudguards are wide on the rear. Now, that indicates that it's pre-war. The later Fordson Standards have got narrow mudguards because they needed all the steel they could get to make tanks.
This now, number 60, is a Massey Ferguson T20 from 1954. Martina Clark from Bishop's Lydiard has brought this over, so not too far to come.
But just remind my colleague that Massey were not involved in this. This is Ferguson. And yeah, I know, well, Massey and Ferguson amalgamated at a later date. That's a petrol TVO one. And we've got a link box on the back with a numerous number of children in. But anyway, long as they're comfortable, that's great. But like I say, there are a lot of these tractors made. You'll see a lot around.
Great way to get to school, I'll be down for that. Meanwhile, this one's a Fordson Major from 1957. Oliver Buckingham from West Buckland, conveniently enough, has brought this over.
Again, a Major with lights on the outside, live drive, which means it's got live PTO, live hydraulics. You don't, when you put your foot on the clutch, it's got a 2-stage clutch, and it's got a winch on the rear. Yeah, YYC, so it's a local Somerset tractor.
This now is an Oliver 70 row crop from 1944. Oliver Buckingham from West Buckland has brought it over.
Yeah, another sort of, when I say American, it is basically Oliver Tractor Company, I think is American. But notice a high clearance again, and this was a row crop tractor in the true sense of the word, for hoeing corn, as they would call it. But that's a nice example. I think it's petrol only, I would guess.
Meanwhile, coming to us now, so if I were to say the words Massey Ferguson 65, would that be correct?
You would be absolutely correct.
Good, it's from 1962 and Tim Cook has brought it over from Bridgewater.
Massey Harris and Ferguson got together to become Massey Ferguson, and this is one of the last of the 65s, Mark II with the exhaust pipe on the left, and it's on a B registration. So the next tractor to be produced by Massey Ferguson to replace this was a 165.
Meanwhile, more Massey Fergusons now. This the 35 from 1957, and that's been brought over by Mike Cook over in Bridgewater.
Now that's his first 35 we've had. We've had some 135s. This was the forerunner of the 135. That's a 3-cylinder one, so it's one of the later ones. But again, notice the 3-point linkage on the rear, the Ferguson system.
Here we go with a Ferguson T20. Colin Hawkins from Watch It has brought this over. The tractor itself comes from 1952.
This tractor's actually older than me, dare I say it, only by a year. I know Colin quite well, and he'll be leading the parade at Dunster Show, so don't forget to turn up at Dunster Show, because Colin will be leading the tractor parade down there. But again, it's a lovely example of one of Harry Ferguson's tractors. And this is a diesel, isn't it? Yes, it is a diesel one. But yeah, nice example, original example.
Jolly good stuff. Meanwhile, this is a John Deere now. I'd hazard a guess at this being John Deere 1020 from 1970, brought to us by Ivor Grant in Taunton.
We are another early John Deere 1020. Probably would have had a Duncan cab on it in its day. I expect, depends on the age, but I like affectionately known them as Jolly Green Giants.
Meanwhile, this one's got Caterpillar tracks on it, and I think it's number 30, so we're going well back. It's a Fowler VF 50 horsepower from 1951, and Gary Grant from South Chard has brought it over.
Single cylinder 2-stroke diesel on tracks, not too many of them on tracks, quite a handful to drive. Don't ever drive one of these if you've got false teeth, because they'll fall out. And when you go home and go to bed at night, you'll still be shaking. But that is a lovely example of what we would describe as a Marshall Fowler crawler.
This now is a David Brown
seat on them, which is quite a wide seat. I'm not sure whether this one has. Some of them have, some haven't. But it's one of the earlier David Brown tractors. I like the way he's got Davison on the front. That's quite interesting to me. But yeah, David Brown 25D, quite popular in their day. Again, diesel. I think they were still made in the Huddersfield factory.
On its way to us now is a Ferguson TED 20 from 1954, and Stephen Broom from Milverton has brought this over for us.
So another one of Harriet Ferguson's there are just so many of these tractors. It's a local Somerset one, SYD.
Would the word be ubiquitous?
That's a big word for me. I'm only a tractor man.
Right, okay.
So yeah, we jest, but there were so many. I can't tell you how many were made. But I certainly met Harry Ferguson's PA, who was a very interesting guy, and he wrote a book. And he wrote it about Harry Ferguson. He signed a copy and let me have it. And it is quite interesting. But that's a petrol TVO one. I don't know what year, I can't remember what year it was. It's an early one, I would imagine.
I believe 1954 would have been that. Meanwhile, here comes a Fordson Super Dexter from 1962, and Dave Yandel has driven that over from Taunton.
Right, here we go. Super Dexter, not new performance. Notice it's blue and orange. It's got the little peak on the nose cone and Super Dexter. But new performance we saw one very early in the parade, which was grey and blue, which had uprated hydraulics and slightly more horsepower. But that's a Super Dexter. It's a nice tractor, that one, actually. I don't know where it came from originally.
On the approach now is interesting, but hasn't got a number. And it makes our life in the box a little bit harder. I wish I knew me tractors, but I don't know them as well as you do, certainly, Jim. Have you any ideas on what this might well be?
Well, I'm not sure. It's obviously got a single. I think it could be a Lanz. I'm not sure.
It is a Lanzini.
Oh, it's a Lanzini. Lanzini, covered in diesel to make it shine. Bit unusual. Single cylinder diesel.
Lanini.
It is a Landini, is it?
Landini.
Well, that's interesting because Landini now is owned by the the Argo Corporation, who still make Landinis in Italy. So I guess that was an Italian-built tractor, and they are now blue.
Another tractor, and he's got a number, and there's a 2 on the end. Is that a 72, sir? Is that a 72? It says 72 on the number.
What it is, that is what they called a mini tractor, a Nuffield 425, and it was actually produced, because Leyland produced the mini car, and they made the mini tractor as well. It never really caught on in the UK, but that's what it is. It's a Nuffield 425, which is known as a mini tractor.
From 1969, brought to us by Dan King from over in Exeter.
Massey Ferguson here. I can't see which model it is. Or it looks like a 550, is it? No, it's an industrial one, so it's a 405 in yellow because it was an industrial track. No, I beg your pardon, it's a 40E which is a highway tractor, got a different gearbox in it, should have a speedo in it instead of a tacho. There you are, see, I may not know much, but I know a little bit about highway tractors.
Far more than I do. Meanwhile, I can reliably inform you that this is a Ferguson TED 20 from 1950, brought by Ryan Jane in Taunton. Oh, it's not. Hang on, I've misread the number. It's an International. Dear, oh dear. Please don't lynch me, tractor people. International Farmall BM Petrol TVO from 1951, and that comes to us from Henry Beams in Totnes.
Yeah,
Made a right pig's ear of that.
I know, it's a fairly unusual tractor. You don't see quite so many of these in this part of the world, do you? But it was probably an American-built tractor, I guess. Again, high clearance. Again, for you know, hoeing corn, as they said. But the Cormac International Farmall sat very high, aren't you? See over the hedge, you can see what your neighbour's doing.
Sometimes you don't want to see what the neighbours are doing there. I turn to you and hope that we can work what this is out.
Yeah, well, this is another, I would think, McCormick International, and I'm guessing at that because I can't see its number, and all I can see is its front and the operator. But I'm hoping I'm right.
McCormick Deering Standard W4.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, the McCormick, so it's in it W4. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's sort of forerunner of the internationals, isn't it? They got together. I'm no expert on these, but again, it's a nice original example. And yeah, you sat right at the back. But notice no 3-point linkage because Harry Ferguson's system hadn't got to it.
This now is a roadless Dexter from 1962, brought from Langport by Mike Mitchell.
Now, Mike, this is a nice little tractor, a 4-wheel drive Dexter. Not many of these. Roadless would have bought the tractor from Ford's the skid unit, fitted the 4-wheel drive to it, and that on steep ground I would think would be absolutely fantastic. It's a great original example of a roadless Dexter.
Here now is number 70. It's an International 574 from 1972, brought to us by John. John, I'm going to try your surname. Chimiwaleski. I'm so sorry, John. But that's brought over from Taunton.
We haven't got many International 574s here today. Synchromesh gearbox, gears on the side, I would guess, and it's quite an unusual. Well, I didn't unusual, but there isn't many of them left. They're sort of, but they were ahead of their time really with their side shift Synchromesh gearbox.
Approaching us now. Yep. Number 78.
So this is one of the, well, at the time, one of the bigger David Browns, a 1212, which from memory was about 72 horsepower. Now, this was to compete with 185 Masseys, Ford 5000s. Again, this is a cab version, and it's a wide door cab, so it's one of the later ones, on a T-Reg, but that's an original tractor.
Here we go then. I believe that's number 81. Would that look to you to be an International? I might need to get my eyes tested at some point because I'm beginning to strain here. So a B275 from 1959. Andy Westcott from Wellington's brought that over for us.
Yeah, see, notice the square front. We've seen one International, BT250, so this is another. I mean, these were built originally. They competed with Ford 3000s, 135s, that type of tractor. And they're a very capable tractor, but there weren't the dealers actually selling them. That was one of the problems. But that's a nice example. Diesel engine, International engine as far as I'm aware. And yeah, good example.
Up next is a Fordson Dexter from 1959, and that's brought to us by Mark King from Taunton.
So again, another Fordson Dexter, see, popular, built in the Dagenham factory. Again, lights on the outside of the grille, so that tells us it's an earlier one. It's not the later ones. They go inside the grille, and then the super Dexters inside the grille. So yeah, another nice example of a Dexter. And I guess the driver's called Callum, is he?
I imagine you're correct there. Meanwhile, another Ferguson, now a TED 20 from 1950, brought to us by Ryan Jane from Taunton.
See, another one of Harry Ferguson's creations. And I mean, you can see how many there were about. If we were back in the 50s, which you won't remember, I do, but there were so many. Every farm had one. Every single farm had one of these tractors. And this is a petrol TVO version again. So yeah, again, Ferguson system. Notice the 3-point linkage on the back, and he's got the 9-hole drawbar of it.
When they added colour into the world around 1959, 1960, that must have been a real step change.
What, colour TV?
Well, just the colour everywhere. I thought the world was in black and white in 1950.
Well, the world was in black and white. I remember colour television coming in. That was quite exciting.
Well, I can imagine it. Wasn't it Wimbledon on BBC Two was the first thing broadcast in colour? 1967?
I can't remember, to be honest, whether it was Wimbledon. I hope it was football.
Meanwhile, number 64 is a Fordson E27N petrol TVO from 1946, brought to us by Marcus Vile from Wellington.
Yeah, well, the bigger tractor. So you've got the E27, which this is, and this has got. Well, it hasn't.
Yeah, then from Wiveliscombe, brought to us by Jack Norman, it's a John Deere Bow from 1941.
Well, this is an early John Deere, and you can hear the sound of the engine. I mean, they've always been my nemesis, John Deere's, but they're market leaders. They're not market leaders for no reason, but listen to that single-cylinder engine. Again, shaky about. You're working on that all day, you'd certainly lose your teeth.
Oh, I can imagine you would. Meanwhile, this is... There's a 6 involved somewhere. $67. Hey, we got a thumbs up. It is a Steyr T84E I-cylinder from 1960, and that's been brought over from East Anstey by James Hutty.
There we are. Now, I think this is our first Austrian tractor, built in Austria. Steyr Steyr has still been around, really. They were around, but you don't see many, with a side-mounted finger bar mower, and I guess the side bar mower was probably on it originally, I expect. But yeah, nice example. Now, is that a single? Yeah, it is a single cylinder, but a Steyr. Yeah, it's unusual, and it does catch me out because I don't know so much about it. But notice the little seat where you could actually take. I was going to say take the wife to the shops.
Only if she's brave. Meanwhile, a John Deere 3120 here from 1970 with Stephen Batten, bringing that to us from Wiveliscombe.
Well, there's Steve Batten, who's a John Deere man through and through. I mean, he's always outsold me in the days of John Deere. He's still going. John Deere, they're market leaders in the UK and have been. When I first started selling, John Deere's were not market leaders, but people like Steve has got them to market leaders from the number of tractors they sold. 3120 6-cylinder, that's a big tractor, and that is, but may keep selling them. Now I've retired.
Chunky boy, that. Meanwhile, I can't see the number on this, but I'm absolutely fascinated by it. It's an Alice Chalmers.
I would imagine this is an Alice Chalmers that came over to the UK on the lease lend scheme during the Second World War. Now, I'm guessing at this, you'll see some Alice Chalmers like this, you'll see case tractors like this, you'll see also, like I said, it came over on the lease lend scheme from the USA.
Yeah, indeed, it came in 1940. It's been brought to us by Tim Ferret from Wellington.
You see, 1940. I don't think even I don't remember 1940, which is just as well, really. But that's what it was, and that was a big tractor in its day. And if you were a farmer in Somerset and you got one of those on the lease lend, you had something quite special.
An exciting tractor, quite unique, all the way from the free world. Meanwhile, this is a Fordson E27N from 1951, brought to us by Harry Buckingham from West Buckland.
Well, there we are, E27N. Notice that on the bonnet it's got four circles. That tells me it's got a Perkins engine in it, and it's probably what they call a P6, which is a 6-cylinder. No, it's not. It's a 4-cylinder. No, it isn't. It's a 6-cylinder P6. So there was a conversion done by Fordson to put a Perkins engine in.
Lovely stuff. Meanwhile, this is...
Do you want me to take... It's a Fordson Super Major. Now, it's interesting because notice the lights are in the grille. So the lights are in the grille. So this is an early Super Major, not a new performance, because that would be blue and grey. So we got blue and orange. Super Major, and I don't know what year this is, probably 63, 62, 63, something like that, I would guess. But yeah, improved hydraulics, improved PTO. So that's a nice original tractor.
Lovely stuff. Meanwhile, something a little smaller. This is a Ford 1210 from 1983, and that's been brought to us by Richard Sawatsky from Minehead.
Know a little bit about these tractors because I used to sell these as well. Made by Shibora in Japan. They were made for Ford in the UK and the rest of Europe. But as far as I can remember, Shibora never brought these tractors in their own right. So you had a 1200 to start with, then a 1210. But certainly, I sold those 1210s, 1910s and 1110s.
Meanwhile, this is a Massey Ferguson 188 bought from, again, Paul Sawatsky from Watch It, and this is a 1973 model.
So this is a beautiful example of a 188 multi-power. So multi-power gives you an overdrive in each gear. And this is a four-wheel drive one. So this would have been a tractor in its day, and that is a real lovely example of that model. I'm not a Massey man, but I like that tractor. But that is a brilliant example of a tractor that would have been in competition with the Ford 5000 and the David Brown 1212.
Here comes number 83 now. I think it is a modified garden tractor. It's come from Yeovil, and that's been brought to us by Lottie Coram.
You've really dropped me in it with this one because all I know is it's got Bertie written on the front of it. I don't know what engine's in it until it gets up near us. We might be able to work it out. But let's have a look. So what is Bertie then? Bertie it's four-wheel drive as well.
It looks rather similar to the Ford that you were just talking about.
It does look similar to the Ford, but it's not a Ford Bertie. Bertie was it would only be a Henry Ford. So it looks like a dumper engine in there to me, like a Wingate dumper engine. But anyway, that is whoever built it, well done.
That's an intriguing model there. On the approach now.
So now we've got a Zeta from the Czech Republic, if I'm right in saying. Zetas came in Storm with, they took us by storm. They had a big, roomy cab on them. We'd never seen anything like that before. This will be a something or other 4.5. I don't know what. Oh yes, a 5745. So it means it's 57 horsepower. It's 4.8. So it's a later one, which means it's four-wheel drive. So there you are. That isn't a perfect example. Bit hot in that cab today, I would think. Yeah, he's nodding his head. Yeah, I know. I have driven one, and they do get warm in the cab because it used to be known as a greenhouse on wheels.
I'd rather be in the commentary box. We've been rather blessed with the breeze today. Meanwhile, here is a Ford 4000 from 1970, also brought to us from Minehead by Richard Zawatsky.
Ford 4000 Force, but pre-FICO cab. The 5000 of mine you saw had a FICO cab on it. This one's not got a cab. It's got the metal top grille, which is the genuine grille that was used on the Force 4000. So yeah, 1970 H-Reg. So it wouldn't have had a cab on it at that time.
You might have sold some of these tractors yourself.
Not in 1952, I didn't. I wasn't even born.
Possibly not. Meanwhile, this is number 84. It's a Massey Ferguson T20 from 1954, and that comes from Taunton, and it's been brought to us by Dave Richards.
Well, I certainly didn't sell this one because I was only one. And no, I mean, these tractors are nearly as old as me, but Harry Ferguson, they just produce so many, and we've seen so many, it's difficult for me to talk about them because I know what they're like. That's a diesel, and they are, he's going milking. He got his churns on board. He's also, just churns, so he's been milking. He's taking the churns to the dairy now.
Here, meanwhile, is a Fordson Power Major from 1959, brought to us by Shane Parker from Dorset.
So again, one of the earlier majors, I'm interested to see whether it's a Power Major, whether it hasn't got it on there. It's going to confuse me. I'll have to sort of dig deep for this one, but I think it probably is a Power Major, and he's nodding his head, so it's not a big D. No, it's a later one. So yes, definitely. But that's an original example of that tractor, and again, there were a lot of these sold. Dagenham built, and Fordson sold a lot of them.
Here now is a roadless VTL 699 from 1970, come over from Bridgewater and brought to us by Martin Evans.
Yeah, now this is another roadless, so 4 equal wheels, 115. That we saw the 118, which was on uneven size wheels, which would have been slightly newer than this one. But that's a brilliant example. In their day, they were a big tractor. They took some turning and they didn't steer so well, but that's a nice looking roadless. Notice a grey bonnet, and notice the cab on that one is a Duncan cab, a Duncan safety cab. It's the one before had a Lamborn cab on, which tells me it was newer.
This now, another foreign tractor.
You're going to leave that one with me. This is a Zeta Crystal, and I think it's an 8011. Is it an 8011? Can't see from here. Which is 80 horsepower. 11 specifies that it's two-wheel drive. The 4.5s and we saw a 4.8 would be four-wheel drive. It's interesting because I've driven one of these a bit, and when you go into reverse, if you're not very long in the leg, you've got to be very careful because you can crush your thumb between the seat. And he's put his thumb up. He's done that between the seat and the gear lever that puts it in reverse. But again, the Czechoslovakian built the Zeta from in those days behind the Iron Curtain.
I'm not looking behind anybody's curtains, iron or not. Meanwhile, we've got our last into the arena for the tractors. He's very proud of this one. Look at this. It is a lovely Fordson Dexter.
He's Fordson Dexter badged, and he looks like a Fordson Dexter, but I'm not 100% sure which one of the garden tractors it is. But it's definitely. I like the registration. You notice a registration number on it?
It is Harrison, and it's a Dex 1TA. I like. That's very clever. Very good stuff.
That's good stuff, Harrison. We like that a lot.
One.